So Darwis actually is a acronym, So it's like it stands for data breach, anti-phish, web search, rogue app monitoring. So it's like an acronym. So and the last was the internal scanner. So we formed this into a word called Darwis, and then it clicked with our customers, and then customers said, So we started with one product, and then slowly, as we went and started interacting with our customers, they wanted more and more. The whole thing is we need to educate the customer in the real knowledge, not the ones which we want them to learn so that we can sell our product. I think you have to be first a consultant, before you become an OEM.
Exactly. If you can understand the people's problem, you can solve it better. Hello everyone. Welcome to the Gaurav Batra show. Today, I am going to talk on a topic which most organizations are facing challenges with, that to have or implement cybersecurity, how many solutions or how many OEMs I need to talk to. To cater this particular issue, I have today with me J. Prasanna. He is director at CySecurity Pte Limited, Singapore. He is having 28 years of experience in antivirus and cybersecurity industry. Together, we are going to walk you through the Darwis full stack product overview. Let's have a look. Hi Prasanna, welcome to the Gaurav Batra show.
Thanks.
So Prasanna, how you will like to share your experience and how the Darwis has started and what your experiences has been, so you can just provide some highlight to my audience.
So see, our journey started back in, I've been in cybersecurity for quite a long time, so I worked for almost 4 antivirus companies in my life. So back in 2008, when we started working on cybersecurity, we found that there was a lot of issues. So I first remember met a small bank CISO.
Okay.
When I went to him, he said, Prasanna, we have a problem, all you guys are doing is consulting, antiviruses, but what we need is actually a product, And he told me that this is my problem. So he gave me a problem statement and he said, can you do this for us? Then I just looked at the issue, but I was not sure whether I will be able to do this, So I went back, formed a team for 3 months and came back with him and showed him a prototype. Okay. The guy liked it. Within a month, he bought this product from me. Okay. So this first product was very similar to the anti-phish solutions, which is there from US and UK. So it was a small bank and they couldn't afford this solution, which was from a global MNC company. So that is how our journey started. So having started this one product, it had an Indian name, It used to be called as Rija Vajra. Okay. So it was an Indian name. So it was very kind of funny, that we started this as a product. And then slowly he started asking us, can you give us data breach? Can you give us dark web? So we kept adding modules after modules into this. So it became almost like in next 5 years, almost like a global product. So we currently have around 120 BFSIs around the world,
okay.
Which
Awesome.
we protect. So some of the biggest banks, even in US, runs our product. So having said this, back in 2019, what we did is we did a little bit of branding exercise, So one of my CISO customers, I actually owe around 8 CISOs royalties, So I don't want to tell their names in this, but they came to me and said, Prasanna, you're going global, don't keep it as Rija Vajra, because it sounds too Indianized, And we had this logo and everything, which was like a little bit reddish and saffronish and all that. So they said, can you change this coloring schemes and all? So we got a consultant who renamed us to Darwis.
Okay.
So Darwis actually is an acronym, So it's like it stands for data breach, anti-phish, web search, rogue app monitoring. So it's like an acronym. So
I was
and
not
the
at all
last
aware
was
of
the
this.
internal scanner. So we formed this into a word called Darwis.
Okay.
And then it clicked with our customers, and then customers said, So we started with one product, and then slowly, as we went and started interacting with our customers, they wanted more and more of this product. So that's how we started our journey.
Okay, so what is the innovation has been done so far, and what is the most rated product you will like to talk about? What is the first one which you have?
So our, to be very honest with you, our flagship product is the Darwis SFS Cloud.
Okay.
So people always ask me, what is SFS, So even our pre-sales team, cannot figure out what is SFS. So SFS is basically from this movie Aragon, which is a children's movie of dragons, So SFS is flapper vision, It is called like the rider can see from the eyes of the dragon. So that's Darwis SFS cloud.
Okay.
So the CISO sees from our eyes.
Your
so
eyes.
we are like
Oh,
the dragon,
very thoughtful.
I was just sitting to be honest with you, in the restroom, and I was thinking about, what can be the name for this. So that is the day when I was seeing Aragon movie, and then I said, okay, let me use this, So it was like the PR consultants didn't do this. It was me, who named it as this.
Okay, SFS, that's awesome, man. The concept, like, looking from the eye of a dragon, and so Darwis is a dragon today, guys. Yeah.
So we got together an amazing product, and post this, we developed a lot of other products. We currently have around 7 products in cybersecurity space. So people come to us often with, interesting innovations, interesting ideas. But to be honest with you, 90% of our innovation ideas comes from CISOs, who are our customers.
Awesome. So 7 products. So can I say, like, will these 7 products together help me secure the overall infrastructure of the organization? If I talk about the bifurcation, what all different lines you have these products on?
So very interesting, the first product we have is the external risks. That is Darwis SFS Cloud. So it has 6 modules in it: surface area monitoring, negative news monitoring, rogue app monitoring, vulnerability monitoring, data breach, and dark web. So these 6, are what regulators want in any BFSI organizations around the world. So what we have is something which is completely, integrated into one single product. See, I'll tell you what is the actual gap in the system. Having been, in the system for 28 years, I figured out something was, 2 major things was problem. One was interoperability. The second was correlation. Now see, there is a data breach which has happened across the world somewhere. It's a Russian marketplace where there is a breach which has happened. Now the CISOs are panicky. The regulator is sending left, right, and center emails to the CISO saying that, what is this breach? This has got your name on it, So recently, I'll give you an example. There was a bank in Kerala which got a mail from the Reserve Bank of India saying that your data of your customers are leaked. More than 7 million records are on the dark web. So when you look at it very closely, it's not the bank's data at all, It was actually a data from a marketplace, So nowadays we are putting our data on Amazons and everything. So some hacker has hacked something like that, a marketplace, and he has only filtered out this bank's data and put it separately as bank database, So the bank gets the bad name. Now the problem is the CISO is nowhere related to this breach, This is the issue, Now who tells the regulator that it is not our issue, That's where we come into picture. So we analyzed this whole threat. We looked at the data, we correlated this information with vulnerability. Because see, we are doing both surface area monitoring, vulnerability monitoring, and data breach and dark web together. So when there is a breach, you always go back and find where this breach originated from. So if you can do this tie-up, I think you have been able to successfully correlate. The second is interoperability. Now you have thousands of systems. See, I'll give you an example. The WAF is sitting, the firewall is sitting. Now these things are connected with each other through different APIs, And then somebody is integrating these APIs. Can you believe? Sometimes when you go to the bank and ask them how many APIs you are running, how many codes you are running, nobody has a clue what's running there, There is no actual actionable data coming out of this system. All they can produce is they can get a list, from their firewall logs and show that, oh, I had 40,000 hits last month, But see, it's not the 40,000 hits which you blocked, which is the problem. It's that one hit which you didn't even know about. It's the actual issue, in cybersecurity. So that's where we are actually trying to see, can we bridge the gap? This is possible because, see, I'm the founder of the company and I'm hardcore techie, So I started my career back in 1992, on assembly language, on antivirus industry. So when you know the technology, you also know the gap. And I think most of the CISOs are not going back to the client and sitting with them and really trying to understand the problem. It's only your pre-sales and sales, which actually brings back. And then there is a product manager who decides whether this product feature is needed or not needed,
Awesome, Prasanna. I think this SFS is amazing product, and apart from that, I have seen in your line CDR, right? So that's on your website. So what does that mean, and how?
So it's a very interesting technology. So CDR is basically content disarmament reconstruction.
Okay.
So years back, I'll give you an example. I was in Middle East, and I went to one of the oil corporations there. So they have 1 million documents which is coming a day into their network. So they wanted an on-prem solution, which can actually take the files which is coming in and sanitize these files. So currently they had a product where the files is coming in and it's checking for known viruses, But they were always worried about what if there is an APT file, like a doc file or a PDF file or an image which is having stegonomalware, So you can have a PDF or a PNG file, with a stegonomalware inside. So it can go inside, and when one of the desktops opens this file, it can get infected. And no antiviruses or XDR or EDR is going to actually detect it. So there is a separate class field which is called EDR and AV evasion. People don't understand this. They just look at product features. It's like doctor giving medicine. Looking at the pharmacy, the guy will come and tell you that, oh, this is what this medicine does. And then the product is experimented on people like me and you. So it's the same story. So what happens is, so nowadays people talk about next generation antivirus, and all this stuff, and then they try to educate the customer. So I was looking at this EDR and AV evasion done by a young boy from Morocco. A guy was just 18 years old, and he showed us literally that he can bypass every EDR, which is out there. So it struck me, when I was sitting in this conference and looking at this boy, it struck me. And post this presentation, I went and spoke to him and said, okay, what's the way out of this, means no AV is going to detect it. What are we going to do,
Exactly.
Then he said, this is CDR, you should do CDR. You should take the content of the file, literally like a Xerox, You take the original file and take a Xerox of the original file and discard the original file. That's the only way to eliminate the malicious code. Okay. So then I started looking around, is there CDR technology? Then I found that few Israeli companies were already into this, quite well, established research. Then I looked at it. When I brought back this technology to Indian banks, they were not able to really afford it, A. B, the Israelis, most of it was SaaS solution, it was on the cloud. The problem is, see, when you are looking at KYC documents, which is coming into the bank, I'll give you a practical use case scenario. You're looking at KYC files. So a motor company might be getting your PAN card, your Aadhaar card and everything, to register. Now, what happens if this PAN card is infected with a virus? So in KYC sites, wherever file uploads are happening, emails are coming in, I think you need to have an API with a CDR engine there. So what it does is it takes the original file, takes a Xerox of it and discards the original file. Now the problem with CDR is for each format you have to write separate engines, So what we have done for now for Indian environment is we figured out that most of the files are either PDF, image files or all sort of image formats and docx, Excel. So we have just made for office files, image files and PDF.
Okay. And to take this forward, like when we talk about this solution, is it replacing anything or it's a complementing any, like you said, EDR, it's complementing it or can we replace it?
So see, here is the very interesting scenario. Recently I was looking at a big RFP from, one of the government PSUs. So I saw next generation antiviruses, EDR, everything put into one RFP, and it was like huge money, So all the competitors were there. Then I went to this organization and, I wanted a meeting with them, I said, what are you trying to solve? Are you trying to put RFP and get tender done, or are you really interested in securing yourself? Particularly with our Prime Minister, talking about Make in India and, all this self-reliance of technologies and all that. I asked them, and then it struck to them that it's very interesting what I'm talking about. They said, so Ms. Prasanna, can you give us a diagram how this should be done? So I told them the diagram should not be that you just have endpoints with the EDRs, but it should be the entire architecture. So you need to have a honeypot. The honeypot should be connected to an API, Threat Intel API, which analyzes the samples which is coming to the honeypot. And then the honeypot API should talk to the EDR API. And then the EDR is sitting at the endpoints. And then I told them one of the lessons we learn in antivirus industry, at the early career is never have two AV in the same machine, So now the whole concept is gone, People are saying either have AV and EDR together, or they say it's okay to have Microsoft Defender on the machine and also one more AV on the machine, So the problem when two antiviruses are in the same machine, they both clash for the same sample.
Yep.
I think this is the good old story, The problem is the new generation is not learned the fundamentals, That's the actual issue, So when I gave them this diagram, architecture diagram, and I showed them that it will cost you like 20% of the actual price,
Oh.
You don't need this, I told them how you can do this. And then they said, okay, but what EDR you're talking about? I said, you use open source EDR and you integrate it into our threat intel. And I said, you can get a phenomenally good product. So they tested it out and they found that it is able to catch actually all the viruses, And then they say, so I think the whole thing is we need to educate the customer in the real knowledge, not the ones which we want them to learn so that we can sell our product. I think you have to be first a consultant, before you become an OEM.
Exactly. If you can understand the people's problem, you can solve it better. And during this conversation, you are mentioning a lot about the API side that, you need to connect API to threat intel, you need to connect APIs to the source SaaS things. So API security in itself is a challenge for many the customers of the organization. How you take that?
So it's very interesting, So recently, one of the banks came to us and said, we have bought one of the best API firewalls, in the market.
Okay.
So I said, okay, great, I said, and are you consuming APIs? So see, there are two risks factors. One is you're exposing API. Second is you are consuming API. So when you are consuming in the API, this is the issue. When you are consuming the API from a third party, I'll give you an example. A bank is exposing API to a stockbroking company. So the stockbroking company directly, accesses the bank database using the API, and then they are able to actually process, demat account and things like that. Now the problem is most of the API firewalls which are in the market, which are claimed to be the API firewalls, what it does is it maximum does throttling, For example, okay, how many requests a day can go to this API? Maybe 5,000, 3,000, 2,000, So these are the kind of things it protects against, But what is actually to be protected in an API is the parameter. See, when let us say I have an API where I give a name or an account number, and then the API returns back all the values to me, like the name, the phone number, the address, everything, Now you're talking about per day, say, let us say a guy has got 100,000 requests he can do to API. The guy can simply request the API and dump the entire 100,000 database outside the system. And the bank has no control over it, So the API firewalls today in the market does controls like that. But the actual problem is when a guy is trying to abuse, let us say the name parameter should be maximum 64 characters, let us say. The guy is sending 108. Most of our programmers don't know how to write APIs. That's the actual issue, So I'll give you a beautiful example. Let us say you send 108 characters inside. The API doesn't know what to do. It goes inside. There is no exception handling which the programmer has written. Now, what our API security scanner does is you give an open API file to the security scanner. It is like how you have Nessus or Nmap or things like that. It actually scans the API very specifically, and checks for all these unprocessed exceptions, which can create. So it creates fuzzings and it checks whether the API is able to process it and return back the result properly. If not, it creates a report and tells you that these are the inputs I gave and these are the inputs which were not processed. And so you come to know you have ZAP vulnerabilities, that is WASP top 10 vulnerabilities. Then you have got fuzzer, all the inputs are sent in and then the outputs are studied to see how the API is behaving. So this can actually reduce your risk when you are consuming APIs. Now coming to the second point, how do you protect your own APIs when you are exposing it? So how an API firewall should be is you have to have separate API firewall for every endpoint API. It's not like you can have one firewall which is protecting 10 API endpoints. That's the first fundamental truth of the story. I'll tell you why. Because if one guy is overloading one API, the firewall will go down. And then all the APIs of your banking system might go down, So it's a risk. So what you do if you really are good at this job, you need to create like Dockerized items, or Kubernetes, with a large physical server where even one Docker or one endpoint fails, the other endpoint doesn't get failed, That's the first story. The second is every input. For example, I told you about a bank account number going in. You should first figure out how many digits are there in the account number. Let us say it is 12-digit account number. In the firewall, you have to say this parameter goes inward and the input validation is only 12-digit number, nothing else. So if it is lesser than 12-digit or more than 12-digit, it automatically stops the API from replying back. Yeah. So this is what the API firewall does. So the API firewall is not like a software engine which you just sell it and just forget, It's something where you work with a customer. 1 month you run it on monitoring mode. I'll also give you a beautiful example, Gaurav. There are developers who are so lazy, The CISO has a tough job in every organization, We always try to lighten his job, I'll give you an example. We asked one API, open API file from a developer. The guy gives us API. You know how many endpoints he has in this? He has 30 endpoints in the API. But you know how much is actually documented? Only 2.
Oh my God.
So you don't even know the remaining 28, which could be a potential risk. CISO believes that, okay, he has given us all the endpoints, let us check, and then he gets a sign off from us. But once we run the API firewall, we detect that there are 28 shadow API endpoints, which the developer has not told us about. So we need to find this. So these two technologies operate complementary to each other.
And I think you have find a right kind of problem. So is Darwis doing anything in this space?
So Darwis, we have just finished developing API security scanner,
Here
and we already sold it to a customer. So I'll give you example, beautiful example.
You will be giving run for the money to all other OEMs, everything you want to do.
No, see, the thing is, our customer has so much confidence in us. I'll give you an example of one customer. He gave us the order without even seeing our beta.
Oh.
So, he gave us an order. He said, we know that after 20 days you will deliver us the product, but we are okay with it. So, I think that's the customer confidence we have with most of us.
Awesome. So, APIs, firewall is a new thing which is coming from Darwis, guys. And also you are doing a great work in the breach attack simulation, right? So, what are the important points you will like to tell me that if I am looking for a solution in that sort, what should I look for?
Breach attack simulation is like a very big field, So I will also be very frank with you how we landed up with breach attack simulation. We are currently under development,
Okay.
So it will take us another 2 months to get the engine is ready, but the panels we have to still write. So there is a Singapore-based OEM which actually ties up with us for white labeling. So they have been selling Darwis SFS Cloud under another name, for quite some time now, last 5 years.
That's again a new information.
So we have been doing quite good numbers with them. So they came to us and they showed us a product from Turkey. It's a large OEM in Turkey, and they have breach attack simulation. And they showed us this product and said there were few limitations they had in this product, which they wanted us to address it. So we started doing BAS. So one of the things we figured out in breach attack simulation is, I'll give you an example. Let us say you are the CISO. Now you want to know what happens to my network at night 3 a.m. if Mirai botnet hits me, So is my controls in place? I have analysts in place. I have security guys in place. All the technologies are there. The blue team is there. But is the blue team is actually going to work at night 3 a.m.? So the CISO will be able to emulate night 3 a.m. Mirai botnet on his network. Or he can have any worm or a virus, but it's only a simulation. It's not the real one, It's only the simulation. So what we do basically is we create the same IOCs into the network, and we see how the SIEM responds to it, how the firewall responds to it, and are the guys are they waking up and seeing, that something gone wrong, and are they checking up? So very interestingly, we ran like a beta in 5 organizations in BSI. You won't believe this, one of the organizations has the best EDR in place. So we ran the simulation and the EDR didn't even wake up at night 3 a.m.
Oh, okay.
So then they figured out next day morning the EDR was ill configured, And they say this is the terminology, ill configured. I don't know what it really means, but this was like interesting. And then I said, come on, you spent like 4 crores on the EDR through your network, and then it does not wake up for a malware. What's wrong with this, So one is the botnet simulation. The second type of BAS simulation you need to do is endpoints. See, endpoints, for example, some virus or a ransomware, let us say, is changing the icon, maybe creating a directory, encrypting the files, So we have ransomware simulation. We have got UAC simulation. That is, see, some program is trying to elevate its privilege from user mode to admin mode. Is the security system able to pop up warning, So these are the systems we are actually building now. So we have around 100 odd simulations which we are building into this.
Awesome. Means I think you are doing great work in that space. And one point which I will like to catch in from here is you mentioned about the white label product on the other names, right? So Darwis engine is getting used by many. Can you give more insights on that?
Okay, so we have a large MNC, US MNC, which is a network load balancing company and WAF company, So they have their own hardware. So they take our product and white label it, and then we sit on the KVMs of that box, So the entire Darwis on-prem API security, API firewall, API security scanner, everything sits on their box, and it's sold in their name. Though we have our logo inside, But generally we have NC, NDA with them, so I cannot really tell you the name. But we have been doing pretty large numbers, with them because we have been actively working in Middle East, Saudi, and African markets, because I think those markets are actually picking up in a large way. So we are more popular abroad in the other names than in India.
Awesome. And when you have this whole stack of product, right? So your core focus is on-prem or cloud, or which one you think is more secure when people are moving to the cloud? And
So to be very, it's a great question. To be very honest with you, the entire West is moving towards the cloud. The problem with India, Africa, the developing markets, is particularly the banks. The banks and oil industry, whichever is critical infrastructure. They don't want on the cloud. They want maximum everything to be on the prem. So when the network load balancer company came to us, we had only the cloud product. We didn't have. This was like 5 years back. We didn't have an on-prem at all. Then they came and told us that, Mr. Prasanna, we need on-prem because these guys don't want anything to do with the cloud, Even CDR. See, you don't want your PAN number or Aadhaar cards to be out, on the cloud, because see, Aadhaar Act is there in India. So you have to have an on-prem for CDR, on-prem for different things. So what we have done is, of late, we have moved most of the things into a hybrid model, like an edge computing, So most 90% is done in the on-prem and 10% on the cloud. So except our Darwis SFS cloud, most of the others we are trying to move into on-prem model.
oh, awesome. So you're doing the reverse one now. Awesome. Okay. So Prasanna, the last segment, this is actually a quite technical and amazing, insightful conversation I had with you. So for my audience, where I like you to interact directly with them. So how you differentiate you or your product compared to the other OEMs, and how people can reach out to you?
Yeah, so see, it's a very interesting question. I'm not much of a marketing guy, to be very honest with you. I'm like happy doing technical stuff. So you can reach out to us at sales@cysecuritycorp.com. But more so, your last question about how you are different from the OEMs. Yeah. I think countries like India, countries like Africa, they are not really rich countries, So you are talking about 80% of your population which is starving, and then you are talking about regulators pushing the banks, to cybersecurity products, and you have let us say you have a budget of 10 crores per annum, So I think in long run, with recessions, with other things in place, and for developing countries, we need to have products which are not just this thing great, but it should also be affordable. And cybersecurity is like a year-on-year, renewals, and costing is there. So it's like an insurance policy. See, first year you might buy an insurance policy for 10 crores or 5 crores, But next year you might actually say, oh my God, I'm spending so much on the premium, let me cut short, So this is what is happening even in cybersecurity. So when the fundamentals are questioned, so what happens is we start seeing, how we can reduce our costing. So ROI is one of the major factors, But like I said, there is also interoperability, which is important. Every guy, when I talk to them, they say, oh, we are only into WAF. We are only into firewall, we are only into this. I think our company is not, fashioned behind these lines, I'm not here to sell my company to a biggest bidder and then run away, So I'm going to be there for next 5 generations, This is how I vision myself. So I'm going to be there. Maybe my son will take over my company, So let us be very frank about this. So I feel we should become a Tata or a Birla in this field, That's how I vision myself. So what I feel is it should be a product which has correlation, interoperability, and also it should be affordable. But at the same time, the quality should be exactly like an international standard OEM.
Awesome, and I would like to wish you all the best, Prasanna.
Sure, thank you so much.
It is very nice
talking to you and talking to you
here as a ritual. So thanks for being on the Gaurav Batra show.
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much.
Thank you, and I hope you will love and your son too.
Done.
Okay, guys. So nice. Thank you for watching this, and I will see you soon in next episode. Till then, be safe. Bye-bye.